Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 5 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in the early 80s, I guess it was. I was working for the state of Florida at the Juvenile Detention Center. And before I ever went to take that job, I always imagined what I would be doing and who I would be working with, and what the kids were in trouble for, you know. And of course, the reality was nothing like what I imagined it to be. I remember one of the boys that was arrested and waiting for his court date was in trouble for sexual charges against his girlfriend. He was like 16 or 17, and she was like 15 or 14 or something like that. They were very close in age, both of them underage, but he was in trouble for statutory rape. I'm going to say that a little reluctantly because I may be misremembering the charge. But anyway, the point I wanted to make is he was in court. I was in court with him. That was part of my job, to take the kids to court. And he was telling the judge that he was with his girlfriend. He didn't do anything that they didn't want to do together. And she was there, and she was agreeing to it, but the parents of the girl didn't, they wanted the boy in trouble. So it's one of those things you say, oh my gosh, well, you don't want somebody to be stuck with a charge like that, because that sounds like he was really abusive, and maybe he wasn't as abusive as the charge makes it seem, if that makes sense to you. And all these sexual things in the news lately, and most of them sound like they're horrible, actually, but Pamela Samuels Young is an attorney, and she's written a book called Abuse of Discretion. It's a novel, very well written novel, and she speaks on topics of child sex trafficking, online safety. She's a fictional writer, so she talks about that. Sometimes a crime isn't always criminal. Is the subtitle of the book. The book again is called Abuse of Discretion. Pamela Samuels Young, you are an amazing lady. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for doing this. How do you find time to write a novel when you're an attorney?
Well, I quit practicing law to write full time about a year ago, but I did write 7 novels while I practiced law. So
is that right?
Just getting up early in the morning, writing late at night. If you have a passion, you find the time.
So is novelist your full-time job now?
It is, and oddly enough, I got more done when I had a real job.
but I'm guessing a lot of what you learned as an attorney ends up in the storylines, right?
Oh, absolutely. Frankly, that's why I started writing. Just really wanting to read legal thrillers that had things that I found more interesting, and that got me going.
So just so you know, I haven't finished the book, but the first part of the book did remind me of that little story that I used in the opening. Give us a thumbnail sketch of the storyline, and if you disagreed with anything I said, please. You're the attorney. I'm not. I just do a radio show.
No, you hit the nail on the head. It's story about a 14-year-old boy, Graylin Alexander, who's kind of a model student. He receives this image of a classmate in his phone, and his world is absolutely turned upside down. What I didn't know before I started writing this is that a kid who has in his possession an image of a minor, a naked image, now has in his possession child pornography. And if that image is sent to someone else, that child has just distributed child pornography. The story idea came to me after talking to a law school classmate who was expressing his frustration about all these kids being charged with distributing child pornography as a result of sending naked selfies. And I said, what are you talking about? And he kept going and explained it, and I was stunned. I hung up, did some research, and not only are they being charged, if they're convicted, in many cases, they're being labeled sex offenders in some cases for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, that's the scary
And
part.
I just think it's just a tragedy. I mean, our kids are growing up in a different era. I mean, I grew up with Lucy and Ricky Ricardo sleeping in separate beds. Our kids,
Yeah, right.
our kids don't
Right.
watch. Our kids don't watch. Our kids don't watch 5 minutes of TV
Right.
without seeing people engaged. So why wouldn't they think that's no big deal? So I think that the adults in us, they're kids. There's a reason we don't let kids drink, drive, smoke, or vote because
That's
they're
right.
kids. So
That's right. That's right.
I think
yeah.
this is a tragedy.
Yeah. So I wanted to tell you, where are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm in the Los Angeles area.
Okay, L.A. In Florida, I'm guessing other states have done this too, but the story I told was not unusual in Florida in the early 80s, or probably any time, but the state of Florida created what they call the Romeo and Juliet ruling, whereas if it is a 16-year-old and a 15-year-old, they're a little bit easier on them. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. Yeah. And there are a lot of states that are like that, but there are 17 and 15-year-olds dating right now with parental consent, and not aware of the consequences that they're facing.
Yes.
So if you're a senior and you're dating a sophomore, God forbid you reach that point in your senior year where you turn 18. There needs to be some discretion involved when we look at these cases.
Yeah.
And sometimes it isn't.
So did you write the book as a way to express that opinion, or is it just a storyline?
Oh, no, I absolutely wanted to shine some light on this. I definitely had an agenda when I started researching these cases. Because parents aren't aware of this. And you have kids with these cell phones and this whole selfie generation. Everybody's taking pictures, and parents need to be aware, and kids need to be aware of the consequences. I definitely had an agenda.
Is the system harder on the boys?
I think it is from what I've been seeing. There was a case out of, I think, Louisiana, where it was discovered, and the father of a girl found pictures of this boy's private parts on his daughter's phone, and the kid was charged. And then it turned out later that the girl had sent the first pictures. He was only responding, and only after some community outrage was the girl actually charged. So I do think boys are hit harder.
But that's as it should be, and something like that can get a little bit more carried away than just pictures.
Right, but I don't think the boy should be. I don't think the boy should have been treated harsher when the girl sent the first pictures. He only sent them back.
Exactly.
I think if you're going to charge it, if you're going to deal with this, they both should be treated equally. But the frank is, they should be treated like kids, not like adults.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah. So tell me the storyline. Does the storyline get into child sex trafficking? Because that's clearly a real serious issue.
Right. The book that came out before this, Anybody's Daughter, is the book that deals with trafficking, and it also won the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Fiction. So this is actually a sequel to that book.
Okay.
So I deal more with trafficking in that book, and but this book deals with the juvenile justice system, as well as the whole sex scene epidemic. And I'm as a lawyer, I knew nothing about the juvenile justice system. You know, when I started this, I had no idea that the attorney's obligation is solely to the child. So if a 13-year-old says, I don't want my mother to know this, or whatever, that attorney has to abide by that.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea that the police could show up at your school and talk to your 14-year-old without your consent.
Oh, I didn't either.
There was so much that I learned. In the course of writing this book.
Does that vary from state to state?
It does vary from state to state, but most states do follow that rule. California certainly does.
And you also have conflicts among the adults, also the personalities, Jenny and Angela and Dre especially.
Exactly. I have Angela and Jenny are the two attorneys who are defending Graylin, and Jenny is kind of by the book. And Angela doesn't care about that rule that the 14-year-old is running this case. She's going to do what's right. And Jenny's like, well, he's my client. If my client says this is what he wants, then we're going to go there. So there's that conflict. And then the second storyline deals with Dre, who is, let's see, how do I say this? Who is taking revenge for something that happened months earlier. I don't want to give too much away.
No. It's an excellent read.
It's a very
Great
intellectual drama, I guess you might say, or not mystery, but it's a courtroom book too, for the most part, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
What a great storyteller you are. Thank you for sharing this with us. And I love the fact that you're trying to make a social statement with your story. The book is called Abuse of Discretion. I hope that you get interviewed by some of the really big shows. And not that ours isn't huge, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Pamela Samuels-Young has sent us a copy of her book, Abuse of Discretion. Call me if you'd like the copy that was sent to us. The rest of us have to go buy it. I did find it on Amazon. Do you have a different website you want to recommend?
It's PamelaSamuelsYoung.com.
Okay, easy enough. Pamela, thank you for being on our show, and good luck with everything. Come back with the next book.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. All right, we will take a break. Be right back.
Robin, how do you like my design?
You're designing a box?
That's not a box. It's a doghouse.
Rough draft for your rough? Sounds like you need personal service.
I do?
Yes, to print the blueprints. See Mark at the Personal Service Center? He can print blueprints, notarize permit applications, print and mail out invoices, and even provide great-looking business cards.
Personal Service Center. That's the one on the corner of Northeast 25th Avenue.